Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, 7 common mistakes of a photographer. I don't know if those mistakes are the most popular mistakes, but I have to confess, I made those mistakes and I regret them. And I wish somebody told me about those mistakes some years before, when I was just experimenting and by trial and, by trying and trying, I got to the point where I finally know how to use camera and which camera is good for me. Anyways. Let's talk about 7 mistakes. Mistake number 1 is too much thinking about the gear. And you may think, oh, gear is so essential, is so important. And you say that despite the fact that you have A7 Mark IV with prime lens sitting there, and you have Fujifilm XS10 recording, and you have Sony A7 Mark III there in your pantry, and so on and so on. That's very important. I have all that gear, I have all the lenses I need, and I have like secondary and third camera and so on, but, and all the accessories. However, it took me years to get to this point where I have this gear, and the gear is not that important, honestly. It is important, but the most important thing is to finally get your camera and go out and shoot. Maybe back in the days, back in the days, it was different because cameras were not that good. But nowadays, tell me which camera is not good to create something really, really good. Even if you take the cheapest full frame camera like Canon RP, you can definitely produce great images and even videos with that camera, period. However, of course, selecting the right gear is also important, the gear for your needs. Because if you're going to, dive or do something specific with the camera, that's important to have the gear that is specifically designed for your needs. However, on the other side, if you don't yet know what you're going to do, basically any hybrid camera on the market will just do the right job for you, okay? So not too much thinking about the gear. Don't let it stop you from just doing your stuff. Buy the gear that you can afford and go out and shoot. This is the most important thing you can do. This is where you will get the experience. This is where you basically will grow as a photographer. Second mistake is, I'll just Photoshop it. And I'll do it in post. That's a big mistake, and I made it a lot, just not taking care of the shots, like not taking care of the shots in the camera, but just counting on Photoshop. And then you have all these over Photoshop images, and some images that are bad will be bad no matter what you do with them. You can Photoshop them forever, and those images will just be bad images. So basically, please invest in knowledge, invest your time to know your camera, and do as much as possible in the camera. This is not only more fun to work with camera than computers and Photoshop, but second of all, if you have a good shot, post-production and Photoshop can only enhance goodness of that shot, if you know what I mean, right? but if you have a bad shot, Photoshop won't save you. So don't count too much on Photoshop, okay? Please don't count too much on Photoshop. All right? Now, point number 3, overshooting. Some people like to shoot more than necessary, and I understand that. That can be some strategy there, and you will always choose some good shot. However, in my case, I feel like overshooting is something that I made this mistake a lot. One thing is, I wasn't confident. I was an experienced photographer before, and I was not confident, so I was like, I'll shoot more, so I'll select something later. But with practice, which I already stated 2 times, with practice comes more confidence. And with confidence, you can start to be more selective. You can shoot less because you know more what you're doing. And then, this process of copying the files, of buying huge discs and then selecting, that's the most difficult part for me. Basically, my wife does most of the selection in our studio here. So selecting photos, if photos are like if you have thousands and thousands and thousands of photos, it's like, I wish I shot less with more thought to it. And please please be careful with that, because that can kill your love for photography. If you have too much to select from, that basically can be so tiresome that you end up not choosing anything or just quitting and crying there, you know. So overshooting to me is a mistake. It's better to be confident, to know what you're doing and shoot the exact amount you need, and then selection process and copying process, everything's it's just lighter, easier, faster, it flows. All right, fourth mistake is investing only in gear instead of investing in knowledge. So basically, as I said, buy the gear that you can afford, and that is important. To have good gear, there's no doubt about it. Buy good gear, okay? Please. But please don't forget to leave something for education. There are tutorials, there are tons of tutorials in the internet, you know, like free and paid, whatever content you are, whatever type of photography you're into or videography you're into, there's some kind of tutorial for that. And like investing in that kind of knowledge, like either your time or money in case of paid courses, is super important. Everybody will tell you, but you may say, like, I don't know, I'll experiment. No. Learning from experienced photographers is a very important part of your growth. And one thing that I found most beneficial in my case is live workshops. If in your area, in your town, there's a photographer that you admire, please ask him if he does kind of one-on-one training, or he organizes some kind of workshops, or check on the internet if maybe in some town like or city that is like bigger and like more there's more photographers living there, if there's some kind of events of that type going on. Because to me, the main way to grow was to work with photographers that know the specific area, specific niche they work with, and that made me like, boom, grow. Okay, so invest in knowledge. That is very, very important, and it will just boost your growth. Now, number 5. It's kind of tricky because some photographers say there's only one part of the day that you can shoot photos, or you should shoot photos. And I heard this 100 times, that golden hour, blue hour, this is the only time when you should shoot photos. And like, this is a mistake in my perspective, because there are different scenarios and different shots for different times of the day, and there are different strategies of working with light. You can shoot against the light, you can shoot with light, you can shoot with side light, you can shoot landscapes, but you can want to enhance some specific colors. You want, maybe in some cases, you want this golden hour, you want this blue hour, but it's far from true that there's only one right time of a day you should take your photos, okay? To give you an example, like some photos that I shot, during golden hour, or my favorite blue hour, just as the lights turn on, are one of my best sellers in my stock photography portfolio, and I made a lot of money on those photos. However, some photos that are doing really, really, really good were shot in the middle of the day, like this shot of Albufeira or shot of electric cars. And in some cases, like let's focus on Albufeira or Carvoeiro, like cities in South Portugal where I live close from my studio. These places, they look great also during day, like 12, 1, 2 p.m., where you can see the turquoise color of the water, of this beautiful colors of the bay, and like shooting that same scenario, like same place during golden hour is also good. During blue hour, not bad. However, I found those places to look most attractive in the full sun. So when thinking of light and the right time of the day, use your brain. There's no rule in that case. There are great shots that you can take during golden hour, but don't limit yourself. Shoot during all day and choose your favorite part of the day that works great for your type of photography, okay? Please. 6, not shooting RAW files, shooting only JPEGs, no post-production. I don't know if any one of you still does that, but if you really want to grow as a photographer, you need to shoot RAW. And you need to post-process your photography. And I give you example why. Back in the days, I had this admiration for some National Geographic photographers. I still do. I mean, they're there are great photographers working for National Geographic. But you know, like this is this first contact with like photography, better photography, you know, and I was like, whoa, these guys, they have probably camera that costed them and lenses that costed them $1 million. And that's true. Professional photographers working, for example, for National Geographic, it's just an example, okay? They have good, you know, they have really good gear, but first of all, those images are processed. Those are good images, good photographers, good equipment, but there's also post-processing involved. Back in the days, those photos were scanned and then post-processed in some way. Nowadays, raw files, post-processing, tweaking. It doesn't have to be anything huge, anything spectacular, but counting that you will take great images straight from the camera, I don't know, I didn't get there. Maybe there are some photographers that would disagree with me. Please leave comments below and link to your portfolio or some photos that you took in the camera and look already great. But I found shooting raw and post-processing a very, very, very beneficial thing to grow as a photographer. And finally, point number 6, like this is 7. Point number 7 or error number 7 or mistake number 7 is not thinking about composition or bad composition. Composition is one of the principal keys or main keys to good photography. And that's very important to understand. Either golden ratio or, you know, rule of thirds, whatever composition method you want to start with, rule of thirds to me is the best way to start. It's easy to comprehend, easy to understand, and you can start from that point. Anyhow, like there needs to be some rule of, you know, composition behind your photos. And then you can start, it's like, you know, like dancing tango. You start to learn your partner, you know, you start to dance. And you learn, and then you become a good dancer. So this is composition. Composition is like dance. You start to dance with basic rules of composition, and then you may change it, you know. You may figure out that, oh, like central composition is my favorite thing to do. And I know some photographers that do take beautiful shots with, you know, central composition, which is, some people say, like, you know, traditionalists, I say, you know, it's a worse type of composition. That's not necessarily the case. It depends on what you're photographing or in your style. But before we talk about style, let's not jump too far. Let's start with the basics. So learning basic compositions, rules of composition is very important. All right? Don't forget about that. So these are the 7 mistakes that I made in my life, and I wish I didn't, or I would be, you know, in a different place now. I would be a better photographer. But still, photography is a process. It is growing. It is, you know, you can always improve something. So let me know in comments below what mistakes did you make and want other users on the channel to know about. And please don't forget to leave likes, subscribe. This helps me a lot, and see you guys in the next one.